Hello, hello. We are firing everything up right now.
Are we live?
We're not getting the Facebook. Copy this. What is going on? Hey, can we add in source? This. Dwayne.
I'm here. You can add.
Can we add in a source?
Yes, you did not. You did not click your Facebook button.
I know. I didn't.
And you can go up and click it.
Where do I click it at? Oh, here.
All the way up at the top. There's edit channels, and turn your Facebook on.
Where's our Facebook?
You got all the others.
Where is
I
our
saw that.
Facebook?
I almost turned it on for you.
Yeah, turn that on for us.
Hang on. Let me do that. Let's see. Political head trauma. Facebook.
I can't hear you. What?
Can you zoom in on us?
Let me deal with this and then yes.
After the fact.
You are now on Facebook. Your Facebook.
Okay,
up.
thanks, Dwayne.
Check it out.
Yep,
sure.
we're connecting it. All right, we're live. Everyone.
Excellent.
Welcome. You welcome.
Welcome to Political Head Trauma for this very, very special show, our first Tuesday afternoon show. And we just had ballots.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday, early Wednesday. I don't know what day it is. It's been a really weird, rough week. Ballots just went into your mailbox, and we are really excited because we know a lot of you that have been tuning in throughout the beginning of all of this, well before the year even began. And you've been coming here to get to know candidates, and we're really, really excited for the guests we're having on today.
Mm-hmm.
We are welcoming Congressman Jim Jordan today, as well as Congresswoman Celeste Malloy.
Yeah, Celeste Malloy's coming on, and she's bringing Jim Jordan, and we're kind of excited to talk to them. They're here now, so we'll just dive right into it.
Excellent. This is so exciting.
Hi,
how
Celeste.
Are you?
How are
Yes.
you?
Great.
Hi, friend. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, we can. I'm going to turn you up just a little bit to make sure it's okay.
Do you want to introduce us to your friend?
I will.
Hey, guys.
This is my friend, Chairman Jim Jordan. He's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I think everyone in Utah probably already knows who he is. And if you don't know him from Congress, you might know him from his wrestling career. So he's kind of a big deal.
Or
It's a
such
hillbilly from
programs
Ohio.
as the incredible committee hearings where featuring Jim Jordan and the famous committees that every single American has been tuned into. Every podcast I hear, it's Jim Jordan. And Jim Jordan, you have come out in support of Celeste and her work and to represent Utah in our district, District 2. Yeah. So that's pretty extraordinary because you've got quite a name and you've got a lot of history and knowledge. And you've seen everything under the sun now. I don't think there's anything.
I think you're saying I'm old, Holly. I think that's what you're saying there. But I do know, I don't tend to be the smartest guy in the world, but I do know a good representative when I see one. And that's what Celeste Malloy is. She's the kind of person you want in Congress. I tell folks all the time, we make this job way too complicated. It's pretty simple when you get right down to it. What'd you tell the voters you were going to do when you ran for the job? If you get elected, go do what you said. And that's what Celeste does. And she brings a passion for fighting for the folks in her district. Utah 2, I think, is your district 2, right? Yeah, Utah 2.
That's a nice way of saying I've been pestering him to death on a few issues.
Well, she has, but that's a good representative.
I have no doubt.
What you were going to do. But she's always friendly, always working. And again, there are folks in politics who you wish weren't. Right? We call them Democrats. And then there are people like Celeste, who you were glad chose public service because she has the right attitude, the right demeanor, the work ethic, the intellect to go there and fight for the things that matter, the things that I think make our country special. So she's a friend and she's doing a great job.
Oh,
Well,
100%.
I have to say, as a party leader in this county, I have never, ever, ever not been able to get a hold of Celeste, which is so rare, I think, in other counties all over the country. Whether I like her answer or not, she gives me one immediately. And she's everywhere all the time. So I don't know how you're managing that, because I know you're in DC, but it seems like, hey, Celeste, will you come assist our council with this? Will you talk to the sheriff about this? You know, we need this. It's like you're our very own congressperson. And, you know, people have said in the past, well, that's her job. You know, she should be there. I get there's a job that you are elected to do, and that is the bare minimum, that you serve the people that you represent. But you add something that's a little bit different. You're very personable, but you're also
A dirt doctor.
a dirt doctor who actually, you have an intense thirst for knowledge that is very it's very addictive. It's like watching you question and ask questions and get to the bottom of it and find solutions, and you do it all with people. It's not like you're like, I'll get back to you on that. You want all the information and your ideas floating out there, and it's really impressive to watch, and you're actually hearing people. So I really appreciate that. And, you know, ballots just came out, and I mean, we've got mail-in happening. Primary is the 25th. We encourage people to vote early and vote in person if they like. We've got 3 new centers open up here in the county for people who want to vote on Election Day. But as the chair, I'm asking everyone to vote early. But
Good.
please, you know what? I've been watching the committee with Dr. Fauci, and this is just, you even have a couple of blurbs out there. I want to be quick because I know you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
But from the American people standpoint, me, myself, neighbors, we watched you guys pull him out, call him out, showed evidence of wrongdoing. How do we do something about this?
Yeah, it's a frustrating thing. It's frankly frustrating for Celeste and I as well, because, you know, we're a legislative body. All we can do is do our oversight work, which is part of, you know, our constitutional duty, get the facts to the American people, propose legislative solutions, or use the power of the purse. And then we can do referrals. We did some criminal referrals, frankly, just a few hours ago on Hunter Biden and James Biden, because they lied under oath, it looks like to us, when they were deposed. But that's about all the power you have in Congress. So, but we should use that power. Like next week, we're calling in Alvin Bragg and Michael Colangelo to come in and talk to us. Matthew Colangelo, I should say. And we also are trying to bring in Brad Smith, the Federal Elections Commission, the campaign finance expert who the judge up there wouldn't let testify. We're going to give him a chance to testify in front of Congress and let the country hear what the judge wouldn't let him hear. So we use every tool we can. But yeah, it's frustrating with Fauci because everything he told us turned out to be false, right? Wasn't gain of function research, wasn't our tax dollars. It didn't come from a lab. He said the vaccinated couldn't get it. The vaccinated couldn't transmit it. Mask work. There's no such thing as natural immunity. First virus in history. No natural immunity. But it was funny in the hearing. And just one last thing on this was the hearing. He tried to tell us that he wasn't trying to downplay the lab leak theory. And you're like,
Absolutely.
Remember that? Like if you said it was from a lab, you're crazy. But no, it's not from a lab. It's a bat to a pangolin to a hippopotamus to Joe Rogan, and then we all get the virus, right? It's like
And
this
he
is
argued with Rand Paul, a doctor, regarding this very theory.
Or he's telling you you're racist if you mention that. Like it's more racist to say we paid for them to do it in a lab that's not up to snuff than to say they eat weird stuff in combination plates.
Another good point, Jared. Yeah, that lab was not up to the standards if you're going to be doing the kind of research they were doing, which I truly believe was this gain of function. Scary stuff. In fact, there's been legislation introduced that I support. Should say we shouldn't have American tax dollars financing that type of research because it's so dangerous.
Well, and if we're gonna fund something where we're gonna discover new viruses and all of that in order to help Americans, we should be doing them under the standards of America, with oversight and with rules that do not create a virus that's going to wipe out the human race.
I don't see any reason at all why we would try to take a virus and make it more advanced. That's just asking, hey, how do we wipe out the human race? Can you think of any other time in history where, like, specifically one group is utterly responsible for an economic collapse and possible recession? Because that's what we're staring at right now. That group of scientists that fostered that and sent it over there, they are responsible for all of our economic woes right now.
Well, I mean, it certainly was the several $1 trillion you had to pay out because you were basically telling Americans that they couldn't operate their business, what it meant to school kids. I mean, all the implications, ramifications for kids, for families, for communities, and as you point out, for our economy, certainly are real. And in hindsight, you wonder, would we have been better off doing what many scientists also said, who were censored and attacked for saying it, called all kinds of names? Like, let's focus on the most vulnerable population. Vaccine comes along, elderly Americans, people with underlying health concerns. Okay, everyone else, you make the choice, and let's go on with life. In hindsight, that sure looks pretty good. But if you suggested that, you're right, Jared. You called all kinds of names, including. But that's the left's template. The left will tell a lie. Big media reports a lie. Big tech amplifies the lie, and then when you tell the truth, they call you a racist or some other name.
Yeah,
Or they call it conspiracy.
Yeah.
One of our colleagues from New York said recently in a hearing I was in, in the early days of COVID, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we made some policy decisions based on, we knew there were bodies piling up and we felt like we had to do something. And I think everybody's willing to be patient with that. What everyone's impatient with is the stupid policies we kept implementing after we knew better.
Well said.
When we got more information, we just doubled down on the wrong policies.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong here, but I think any policy that violates the Constitution, regardless, should always be looked at and really, really considered, because there were people's personal freedoms that were being violated nonstop. And if it wasn't by the government, it was the nudge from the government to corporations. So the government didn't have to have their hands dirty of saying, oh, we're not violating your rights. We're just telling businesses, you can't work, you can't function, you can't go to school unless you follow these mandates. And yet they get to wash their hands of it, where businesses are the ones they chose to be successful.
Couldn't go to church, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to school. Every liberty we have under the First Amendment was assaulted. Told Americans they couldn't go to church, told Americans they couldn't assemble. You couldn't come to your capital to petition your government to redress your grievances because you weren't allowed in. It was closed to the very people who pay for it. And then free press, it was assaulted as well. And Jen Psaki stood at the White House press room and said, it said the Biden administration is now working with social media platforms. Most Americans get their news from social media platforms. We're working with them to limit what Americans can see. They were censoring Americans.
Censoring.
Yeah. So
and then canceling.
Every right. And of course, your right to talk is the most fundamental, right? And they went after that one as well.
So I've had a lot of people, I've been campaigning nonstop for a year. And a lot of people say, why isn't anyone in the government doing anything about this? Why isn't anyone being held accountable for this? And while we've got Chairman Jordan here, I think it's worth talking about that. My answer to that every time is we actually are. Republicans are doing something that's kind of novel with the Weaponization Committee. And Jim Jordan chairs that committee. And I'm familiar with the work because Chris Stewart was on the committee.
Yes,
and I staffed him there. Yeah. So that's how we first met. But why don't you tell them a little bit about what the Weaponization Committee does? Because I think it addresses some of people's frustration that nobody's responding, that Fauci's getting away with telling us lies, and that the government locked us down and nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, we helped with the Twitter files. Then through our investigative work, we had the Facebook files, the YouTube files, the Amazon files. We found out Amazon on the whole censorship effort. We found out that Amazon was actually trying to ban books on Amazon. That if you in any way question the narrative relative to COVID or question the narrative relative to the 2020 presidential election, you were being censored. And we probably brought in more Democrat witnesses. We brought in Taibbi and Schellenberger, the guys who brought the Twitter files forward. Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We brought him into a hearing, all in this censorship effort. And we know we're having an impact because 60 Minutes went after us, and because the people who were involved in the censorship effort are saying, because of the work of the committee, our misinformation and disinformation studies programs are being pushed on and pushed back on, which is exactly what we want. Yeah. So I guess 60 Minutes can keep attacking us.
Yeah.
But I actually think our right to speak, our First Amendment liberties, free speech rights, that to me is the most important thing. We can recover from all the other stupid policies, the border policy, the inflation, the crime issues, they're all bad, and we need to deal with those. But if they take away the First Amendment liberties, that's just fundamental to who we are as a country. Then you don't have robust debate, and you don't settle differences through debate. It gets scary if you don't settle them that way. So that to me is real, but that's where we spend a lot of our time on the committee.
So tell me, with this actual situation we have, this tells me that we need to increase our majority in Congress. I mean, this is, if anything, I mean, these committees you've been having, and many of us watch tidbits here and there, and they only pull out sound bites. And I know this is day in, day out with you guys. You guys are constantly doing all kinds of things. I look at the J6ers, for example. I mean, it was okay for a summer of love where they burned our country to the ground. COVID restrictions didn't matter then. The left was fine with them protesting with fire all through the summer of love. But with the J6ers, it was absolutely not, and so many of them are not getting a fair shake. With something like the majority, a strong majority of Republicans back in the Senate and the House, then we can actually create laws, and we can actually hold the power of the purse in a way that we don't really, I mean, you guys are constantly probably trying to whip your own side votes on things and not getting the good response. Tell us how we can increase majority.
Well, I think I think Americans, this election is going to be real basic. They're gonna remember what it was like 4 years ago. They're going to look at in 3 years and 100 and some days of the Biden administration, we've literally went from a secure border to no border, safe streets to record crime, $2 gas to $4 gas, stable prices to record inflation. Oh, by the way, we've also had a commander-in-chief who 4 years ago projected strength from the Oval Office. Today we have Joe Biden. And then you add to it the fact that these agencies have been turned on the very people they're supposed to serve, we the people, with this weaponization of government, this attack on liberties, the lies they told us during COVID, and on and on. I think that's, I mean, you can say that like I did just in a minute, and that's the campaign. And do you want Trump, who had all the good things going for the economy and projected strength, and we weren't having wars in Ukraine and Israel, or do you want more of the same, where the left, which now controls the Democrat Party, and Joe Biden continue to do the things they're doing?
I agree. I've got a question on that point. We saw what happened in Arkansas with the ATF. We saw what happened out here with the FBI in Provo. Why are our federal agents, it seems like their only reaction is to call up their CERT team to function at all? They don't get local police involved. Is there a grandstanding going on like we saw, for instance, at Waco? It feels like that.
I'm going to answer this one first, and I'll
Go
let
right
you guys
ahead.
clean up. But it seems to me like whenever somebody doesn't feel like they're accountable and they think they're the good guys, it's just human nature that they're going to start abusing their power. And that's why I come on your show all the time. I tell you this all the time. I feel like one of the biggest parts of my job is accountability, because if I'm legislating and I'm in closed door meetings and I'm not coming back and accounting to the people I represent, then I'm going to start thinking I have all the right answers, and I'm going to start thinking that people shouldn't question me. And it's easy for me to just, move forward with things that are a bad idea. And I think the same thing happens in federal law enforcement. They feel like they're the good guys, and whatever they have to do to get the bad guys, they're justified in doing. And the thing that stops them from getting there is accountability and transparency. And those are a lot of the conversations we're having here in Washington. The 56 reforms to FISA, they increase accountability and transparency. The hearings that they're having in the weaponization committee, it's about transparency and accountability and making sure people are informed. So I think the answer to your question, Jared, why is this happening, is that the accountability is too low. We've sort of trusted them for a long time, or treated them like we trust them, and said, if they're doing it, then there must be a good reason they're doing it. And that isn't how the federal government's supposed to work. We're not supposed to trust the federal government. It's supposed to be accountable all the time. And
Right.
so I think that's why it's gone off the rails. That bad things grow in the dark, and the more sunlight we shine on these law enforcement agencies and their activities, the more accountable they feel, the more they'll adhere to the rule of law.
Would it help if maybe the leader or the people making decisions on the FBI, on DOJ, if they were actually elected rather than appointed? Because it feels like every election season, they're still getting to be no named and no accountability.
Well, if President Trump wins, to that question, if President Trump wins, you're going to get a new AG for sure, and you're going to get a new FBI director. And you're right, Holly. The premise of your question is you need people in there who are going to change, because I still think a vast majority of the rank and file people are good. People at the top, that's where the problems are. Two quick points I'd make to Jared's question. One, everything Celeste said was great, but what you first said is why I think it's so important she gets reelected, because she said going back home, talking to the people, that's how you're held accountable. We have to run for reelection every 2 years. And I always tell the folks back in the 4th District of Ohio, that's a darn good thing, because every 2 years you get a chance to throw me out. And that keeps me honest. That keeps me coming back, talking to the people. That the founders wanted the House of Representatives to be the body closest to the people. That's why we got to run for reelection every 2 years. And frankly, that's why every tax and spending bill has to start in the House. The money's important. Directly to the point about the ATF, what happened in Little Rock? We had a hearing with Dettelbach, the director of the ATF, just a week and a half ago.
I know I watch it over and over. It's some people like sitcoms, some people watch illicit movies. I like watching the ATF guy get raked. Yeah.
Well, God bless you for doing it, but understand that fact pattern, and I know you do, because if you watch it, you do understand it. 57 seconds, the SWAT team comes up for a guy who sold 6 guns without a license.
Right.
The guy who, by the way, is the highest paid official in the Little Rock municipal government, ran the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport. And in 57 seconds, they come up, they put tape on the doorbell camera. It looks like they cut electricity to the house. It's 6:02 a.m. in the morning. And then they don't wear body cams. And the first question I asked Dettelbach is, what were you guys trying to hide?
Right.
You do those 3 things at 6:02 in the morning, kick in the door, and Mr. Malinowski is shot 57 seconds later in the head. What is that?
It's by design. That's how it looks. It looks like it was by design. The time, the no-knock warrant, the covering the ring cam, the time alone. Any gun-carrying American knows when their door's getting kicked in, they are thinking home invasion, not FBI.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I almost think that outside of kidnappings, I would pull warrant execution away from any federal entity and just hand it over to the local sheriffs, because familiarity, I think, would make a big difference in outcomes.
Yeah, there's a state police I've talked to. It's funny you bring this up, because I just talked to 2 of our members from Arkansas today on the House floor. And they're very concerned about it. And the attorney the Malinowski family has hired, former U.S. Attorney Bud Cummings, great guy, testified, did a tremendous job. The state police are doing an independent investigation, trying to get answers to what happened here. But we're thinking we may want to talk to the state police and see how that investigation is progressing, where they're at. Both the members from Arkansas think that they're going to do a fair and objective investigation. But we'd like to get this information as soon as possible. This is just wrong.
Well, and we had the situation in Utah County, Celeste, as you know, the gentleman accused of writing bad things about Biden, and he was shot and killed in his home when the sheriff wasn't even contacted, that the FBI was even going in. And I wonder if that sheriff could conduct an investigation into the FBI in that situation.
Wow.
So we have these kinds of conversations with sheriffs in Utah all the time about things that aren't even criminal, because we have the federal government managing the majority of the land in our state.
Right.
And so I talk with rural sheriffs all the time about law enforcement issues where, the sheriff can handle law enforcement in their county. They should be handling law enforcement in their county. And we have these agencies that have their own law enforcement, and it's not always clear why, but if you are somebody from Salt Lake City and you're in Garfield County and you're out recreating on public land, and someone tries to stop you and they have a badge and they have a gun, but it's not a badge you recognize, you've got to make a decision about how to respond to this person. If the sheriff shows up or a sheriff's deputy, you know who they are. I mean, you may not know them personally, but you know that a sheriff or a sheriff's deputy has jurisdiction in that county. But you don't know if somebody in a government truck with a badge on really has any authority to do anything. And it's a problem. We need, again, this transparency and accountability really matters. So we have conversations all the time in Utah about law enforcement and what authority they should and shouldn't have. And working with local law enforcement is the smartest way to go. It's the cleanest, it's the clearest. People know who they're responding to. I'm, as a woman, I don't want to pull over for somebody that I'm not sure is law enforcement. It should be clear who you're dealing with and what authority they have.
And you've actually worked with our sheriff, I remember, through one of the meetings regarding our public lands and injury that happens on those public lands. The sheriff's responsible at the end of the day for the county, but then BLM is overriding him, and you're absolutely right. Anybody should have to know and have recognition of who is trying to police them.
Yeah, you guys think that the ATF told the Little Rock police not to wear their body cams?
Absolutely not.
Did they?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
So does the Little Rock, is it in their policy to wear body cams?
Yep, it sure is.
And they did not wear body cams in that operation?
And that should be absolutely a crime.
Oh, that gives me chills. That part I didn't. Oh.
I didn't realize they had Little Rock police with them.
That's heavy. Well, I know they meet up in a Walmart parking lot. They met up, had like a 6-minute powwow, probably a 5-paragraph op order, and then kicked out.
That's the most Arkansas thing I've ever heard. They met up at a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah, that's true. They did. Now, the interesting thing was that 10 cars pull in. But the interesting thing was the week prior, the same 10 cars in the Walmart parking lot, because we got the video cam, footage. We actually played this in the hearing. The week before they met up, and then they didn't go do the raid because they learned that Mr. Malinowski wasn't home.
Yeah, and wasn't the warrant for phones and to search his safe, correct?
It was a search warrant. It wasn't an arrest warrant.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, you could have went. Plus, they had surveilled this guy for a couple weeks. So follow him to the airport, follow him to his job, go get him there, get the phone there, and then call back home if anyone's home, if his wife's still home or whatever, and say, hey, we're coming to the house to get the guns. Nobody gets killed. And
exactly.
Remember, a law enforcement officer got shot as well because he was, as you point out, how like they kick in your door at 6 a.m, cut the electricity. It looks like you think it's an invader. So he was firing, trying to drive him back and warn him, I think, because he's fired low. And one law enforcement officer got shot in the leg. So we don't want that to happen either.
No.
None of that happens if you do it, not kicking the door in at 6 a.m. and 57 seconds later starting to, return gunfire.
Or instead of 6 a.m, you go at 6 p.m. Knock on the door.
Absolute different situation.
Wearing a suit and a tie. Introduce yourself and serve him a search warrant.
He's a good member of the community. He's running an airport.
Good or bad. If he's good or bad, the best way to prove it is when you're in a suit and tie and you let him do all the negative actions. Yeah. You don't go and force that. For something like that, it seems like our federal agencies are too quick to use their CERT teams, their reaction teams, for any circumstance, any servicing of a search warrant or anything when they're not using enough people in suits. Anyway, so
we have one more thing that I wanted to ask you about. I know we only have 5 minutes, but the regulation of interception of communications and provision of communication, RICA, which just rolls off the tongue. Thank you for saying RICA. Can you give us some insight on that?
I'm going to let Celeste, about this. I'm going to look at this.
Yeah, the only RICA I've been worried about lately is the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. I've spent a lot of time on that. I've spent a lot of time talking to Chairman Jordan about that. And
Sorry about that. It was the RE or the RICA.
Yeah.
Well, we're all for. I was just someone had just laid something here, or give me something earlier here. We're certainly concerned about Fourth Amendment rights. It's why in the back during the when Celeste mentioned it earlier, back during the FISA debate, we actually think in the 702 program we lost this unfortunately on a tie vote, but something we advocated for strongly. I thought it was the key to the bill was if you're going to search this database, this what I call the huge haystack of information, the way our system works is you're gonna use Celeste Malloy's phone number, name, or email address. You got to go get a warrant. You got to go to a separate equal branch of government, get a probable cause warrant to do that search. That's not the case right now, and that's concerning. Then we've also had legislation we've passed out of our committee, which says government shouldn't be able to go purchase something that would otherwise require a warrant. It's basically, we call it, the title is it's by a colleague of mine, friend of mine from Ohio, Congressman Davidson, that it's the Fourth Amendment's not for sale. So it's like protecting your privacy rights when government wants to buy data that would otherwise require them to go to a court and show there's probable cause to get a warrant and get that information on someone.
Well, you know what? I've always said this. If you're going to buy my data, why aren't you buying it from me? Why should I, the citizen, not be able to get royalties when you are using my information to make your company more profitable? I mean, if we wanted to get down to it, this is a free nation and we're a free market. We should be able to do that. When do citizens get to take their own likeness and their own information and actually get some
Yeah.
some
You
cash
sound
on
like
that?
college athletes, name, image, likeness, right?
Yeah.
You sound like that.
Oh,
Well, and now we're getting
million.
into
That's insane.
contract law, because most of the time when we're using any tech, we've agreed that they can use our information, although it's a
In the fine
contract
print,
of
yeah.
adhesion that we
Yeah.
didn't get to negotiate, and
Fine
you
print, the boilerplate.
probably didn't read it anyway. So
So-
that's an excellent point.
The radiation exposure, which is known as the downwinders,
Yeah.
which my stepfather grew up in Milford.
Yep.
He's had cancer a couple of times. And I mean, he's 80 years old.
Mm.
Is
Yeah.
that act still going for people living there now?
So it is still going.
Yeah.
It expires on Friday, so that it needs to be reauthorized. I have a bill that I introduced with Senator Lee, so he's got the Senate version of it, to do a clean reauthorization, which means we just extend the bill for 2 years exactly the way it is. There are a couple of other bills out there. Congresswoman Hageman from Wyoming, who's on the Judiciary Committee, has one that ties the downwinders together with the uranium miners who were exposed, and fixes some of the geographic issues with it. And that one's working through the Judiciary Committee. But the real reason we're struggling with this is there's a bill in the Senate that's big. And it's like $50 billion, and it doesn't have a pay for, and it throws a lot of categories of people into there. So Chairman Jordan has been working with me and with leadership in the House. We're trying to make sure we can get either Congresswoman Hageman's bill that is an appropriate size, or my clean reauthorization through, so that this doesn't expire for the people who are already expecting this, already dependent on it, that the downwinders who the government has already admitted liability for causing cancer, for sending mushroom clouds over us. That needs to stay in place. And then we can deal with all these other issues in other parts of the country where they feel like they have radiation exposure issues that are different circumstances, different fact patterns, shouldn't be on the same life raft.
Brilliant.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, and with that, I mean, we've got to have, at least with your bill that I see, at least it extends it.
Yep.
And then if anything needs to be fixed or corrected, you can have time to fix and correct with those 2
Exactly
years.
Right.
We should have you come testify. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Well,
Then
thank you.
You and
I'm
your
happy
stepdad
to.
come testify.
Hey, with what's happening in the Senate, and I know we didn't get a lot of time to go over the border, and I know we're getting close, but with what you guys did with Mayorkas, when he tells the American people the border is secure. I mean, that is a quote. You guys did your part, but the Senate isn't picking it up. And we still have an open border, which is skyrocketing crime. We're in rural Utah. We've got a great sheriff. We've got, great community. We've got a highly armed community. That also helps. But what are the American people supposed to do if the Senate's unwilling, other than get the majority in the Senate back?
Yes. What the American people are supposed to do is get us a new president and get us the majority in the Senate. And then we can fix a lot of these things. We also passed HR 2, our border bill, but the Senate hasn't taken that up. So Let's get more Republicans in office. That's a great note to end on. Do you have any final?
No, vote for Celeste Malloy. That's what I say. And Donald
Me
Trump
too.
and as Celeste said, let's take back the U.S. Senate, which I think is going to happen.
I do too.
I think all those things are going to happen, which
I
are
feel
good for the
pretty
country.
optimistic about it.
Well,
Thank you guys.
If anyone right now is riding for Biden, they need to get a lobotomy because we're living
the
in
cadaver in chief.
crazy land right now. It's insane. I mean, Biden is coming out, and 3 years later, he has to totally reverse everything he did.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you've got to add to or adjust what you did, but when you're totally reversing it, that shows that one, he went in there without a thought in his brain, and he surrounded himself with some radical people, and they made those decisions, and they're disastrous.
Well, with you guys, and what
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping, I mean, Mr. Jordan, it
Yeah.
is such a pleasure meeting you. I
Nice
feel
to
like
meet
I
you all.
know you because
Yeah.
I see you so often, and you run your committees really cool. I mean, it's just cool to see somebody be like, stop.
There's two
Grow
ways.
up.
There's two ways I like to watch a head of the FBI or the head of the ATF grilled. And that's either by you, which is to the point and you set the trap, or Kennedy, which has me on my back laughing.
He is funny, and
Okay, we have to run.
Yeah, I gotta
Yes.
run.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
God
for
bless you guys.
giving us
Thanks.
some time.
God
Thank you.
bless you. And
All right.
Celeste, she is on the ballot right now, so everybody turn in your ballots as soon as you can. If you have questions, also, you can always reach out to her, and you can
Let's-
also reach out to Tooele County Republican Party for questions. We will get them to her
We
if
need
you're
to-
unable to.
I want to send out thank them for their time, and I guess should we go through these comments that
Absolutely.
rolled in on us? All right.
Why did those not show up? Are they not on?
We've been having issues with our restream, but we didn't have enough time to manage comments with their conversation. We had a half hour with them. But Chad says, more than the Fauci hearing Monday, I appreciate Congressman Jordan's interaction with Merrick Garland yesterday. Yes.
Oh, right. We
And he's asking,
absolutely.
will he have an opportunity to realize the actual audio of the President Biden interview? That is a good one. I know that's something they've been asking for. Will they get it? Man, that'd be good. But I think Garland will take the computer it's stored on, hit it with a hammer, and light it on fire long before that gets into any
I
kind
mean,
of
pull a Hillary Clinton.
public light. Oh, did I say that? That is,
You wipe
coinkadink.
it with a rag or what? That's a quote.
Dave says, would it be possible to use the illegal immigrants as labor crews to help the taxpayers pay for their return trip home and all the housing required to contain them after capture? Or am I just having a fantasy idea?
Wake up, Dave.
never-
You're
after-
dreaming.
Or oh, Dave's going hard. I don't know if that would be allowed. Gary Henderson asked question: did Jim Jordan talk with challenger Colby Jenkins before giving his endorsement to Malloy, or is he just returning a political favor?
Now, this is something that I know that was during the bills that Colby has actually talked about regarding FISA and regarding the spending bill. Jim Jordan, along with Celeste and a number of other people in Congress, they were all working together. So when Jim Jordan was questioned early on, before he actually did a full endorsement, he was adamant that her work on this bill was important, that the support of this bill was in order to get things fixed and made right regarding FISA, that this needed to be done. I think it came out after that he wanted to endorse her. I'm not going to speak for either of them, but he has been highly supportive of her since she was in office. And he also supported Chris Stewart highly, and there was a great working relationship there on the committees that they discussed that they served on. Again, we only had a short time with them. They're working in DC, as you know, if you're paying attention to C-SPAN especially. I mean, you got Hunter Biden, you got Fauci, and you've got the Attorney General.
We're in crazy times.
It's a lot.
Honestly, like our Judiciary Committee should be in there talking about, okay, is this law work? you know, or is this law functioning, or is this states, you know, are these working? Instead, they've got to bring people in and grill them. It's crazy land. Gary also asks, why did Celeste Malloy vote to evict George Santos? That's an interesting question. One I choose. You know, it's weird. When I first heard about Santos and the eviction, I was on board with it. But since looking into it more,
Well, looking at what we risked
I
by
don't
losing him,
well,
majority wise.
for me, the risk, I'm not a Republican, so, but for me, it's, man, I don't know the story behind Santos enough, but things I've heard has definitely changed my mind on whether they should have, but I don't know.
But can we talk a little bit? I know you're not a Republican, but the platform of their party requires character, and it requires,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, he did
behaviors.
use campaign
So
finances to pay for.
As Republicans, they
Dating
want to
site.
hold each other accountable. Now, you don't see that on the other side. They're infighting, and yes, regarding another candidate that they were talking about, are they going to vote him out? I think it's the guy in New York, had the gold bars.
Oh, he's Chicago. Menendez.
Chicago, of
Is
course.
it Menendez? No.
But you see, the Democrats do not clean up their own house.
Yeah, they never have. I mean, you can go back and look at Nixon.
Now, of
Nixon,
course,
it was the Republicans that pushed Nixon out because he was a blemish on them.
well, I think that Nixon was a whole different deal. I don't think he played ball right, and I think it was probably more of the bureaucrats that were pushing him out. But
Potato.
I digress. But when you have Republicans doing that now, looking into the long term, and if you're going to play politics correctly, you don't risk your majority to clean house. You let the people clean house every 2 years and get them out. So I do fully, Gary, understand that it was very scary for Republicans to take that vote. But I'm also thoughtful to the fact that when we want people to represent us, we want them to be the example and to at least uphold the principles and the law. And when one of our own is not doing that, ethically, especially, one of our own needs to be called into question. So again, there the aftermath of that, and
I know
potentially
Santos was
losing that.
wild. I don't know. I've watched interviews with him on Pierce Morgan. I think, was it Pierce Morgan? A couple weeks ago was great too. I mean, he's a wild man. I like it. Dave says, I love Santos. He is the true representative of our house culture. Gary also says, why does Celeste want illegal immigrants to come work in Utah?
I'll tell you, Gary, because I've sat down with many, many people, contractors especially, contractors, farmers. These folks cannot get people to work. And the option is that we should have regulated immigration. And we've always said on this show, I think Jared and I agree, that immigrants that come in should be sponsored like the old days. A company that's ready to hire them, make sure they are housed and fed and paid, but they are responsible for that until they become a citizen. And that's how it used to be. That's a working immigration system. Acclimate them into society, but they already have jobs waiting for them for the places that need. Even seasonal workers that come in are having terrible time renewing visas or green cards, whatever it is, for that seasonal work because they have to renew every year. So farmers, contractors, they're losing employees. The government's making it so difficult for them to come back and then go home, which is what they want to do. They don't want to stay. They want to come for the seasonal job and then go home. I think that all of Congress right now is trying to figure out how to mesh those two together. We want immigration. We just want it done well. Well, that has to be done through reform in the policy right at the get-go. Before they have to climb fences, there should be a path to get a green card to come work here or to become citizens that isn't 10 years and $50,000. And if it's possible for us to start reform just rewrite it to say anyone that has a sponsor companies can sponsor these employees to come over and work, but we'll know who they are before they get here. Their intention, so they're going to go back after, whether it's a green card or seeking out citizenship options, but there is somebody accountable for their behavior and for their return or for their acclimation into the country. So again, all of Congress, especially Republicans, are trying to figure out a way to make it so we have a very good economy, but also so that companies who are trying to get what they need done, they're able to get workers.
Yeah. It's...
We need to go back to the...
yeah, I'm going back to them. Just
I
making
got
sure
them.
if we got comments anywhere else we got to catch up with while we're doing this. Yeah, I'm going back to them. Just it's we do. It is an economic thing. It does hurt the lowest classes of us, driving down wages. I don't know how we control for that. I mean, if we do it through control of wages or, the E-Verify system, or if we do, they only get hired if there's no, citizen willing to do that job. Those are all complicated things, and politics is all about trade-offs, and what are the trade-offs if we do any of that? And I don't know the answers to that. But Dave says, will they work as forced laborers, or do I have to pay for them as well? David is trying.
David, is he going to be on the show Friday with you?
I don't know yet.
Consider this an invite.
I haven't. Well, I've got invites elsewhere right now, but I'll talk to you later about that.
Okay.
Dave says, if I run for office, I will wear a body cam. I want David to wear a GoPro on top of his head. I want it like looking down so we see the top of his hairline.
I think they should all be on body cam.
Transparency.
As long as they're on the clock, right?
Transparency is important. The problem is, how do you control for them, like not meeting with people outside of when they're on the clock?
Well, that happens, but I think what we do.
I don't know.
We make every single person in government their own little TV reality show.
I say
where camera crews follow them around day and night, and anyone who signs up for it willingly, great. Even throw them some money to their campaign. If people tune in, and I think America would tune in to watch a day in the life of their congressperson
for a week. We need to get rid of Citizens United. We need to get rid of having PACs and super PACs and all that. We got to get rid of that. If you can track it, our politics has the price of them has exploded, and while they've exploded, here we are in constant overt warfare, and everything's getting more expensive. Our economy really hasn't had an honest and good economy since. We've got to get rid of Citizens United.
So something just came out that the inflation rate now is second to Carter under Biden.
I'm not shocked at all.
And they have changed the way they're judging it now. They've pulled things like, okay, well, you can't count clothing and you can't count fast food.
I'm not shocked at all,
and
because
so all of this, and then Trump is at the very lowest inflation rate in, I think, history, probably, considering how they were counting.
I will argue, though, Trump kicked off the printing money for the populace. He fell into that. So he definitely, I hope he learned a lesson from that.
So,
but let's get back to these questions.
FISA reforms did not include eliminating the warrantless surveillance of American citizens as Malloy had promised. She broke her promise.
Yeah, we grilled her on that already.
But again, the FISA reform required that they still saw the judge, and it was all they had to prove.
Well, one thing that she added in there, and I think,
or face penalty of law.
This is their
jail.
Their biggest strength they put in there is that now FISA warrants, they have to, I think she said a bi-weekly or every 2 weeks report in front of a congressional panel on what FISA warrants they're pulling out.
But there's
I agree.
punishment.
I agree. They didn't get rid of FISA.
We would have liked that.
We would have definitely liked that. We had Celeste on and grilled her about it, and I didn't go easier when I didn't go easy on her when I asked her about that. I still won't. And if we can get her back in for another good sit down, a 2-hour conversation, which is really hard to get out of a politician because they've got to be very guarded with their speech. And 2-hour conversations, you tend to stumble into the weeds. So you'll rarely see a serving politician do a open-ended sit down. They usually have more control over that, and they control it through, okay, we're going to limit our time. And I understand that. I'm not blaming them for that.
Well, they've actually got committees going today.
Yes, but even then, we haven't.
She sat down with us, and it's been pretty impromptu.
Yeah, she will sit down with us. Since she got in, her time has been a lot more restricted. Where we used to get 3 hours, now we might get 1. And I understand that, and I'm not blaming her for that, or any politician, Democrat, Republican.
All politicians.
Because things they say have weight of law. So I understand why even their staff is like, I'm sure she's got a staff member that when she says, all right, I'm going to go on the political head trauma, her staff says, all right, you have 35 minutes. And she's like, well, I think we should do, an hour. And they're like, I'll give you 45. I'm sure she has staff that says, we've got to keep this tight. I'm sure they go over, I'm sure like in the TV shows, they're walking down the hallway. Here's notes. Here's what you're going over. And then,
Well, there's so much into that. If they're on committees, if they're going over things, they can't, breaking news, spill the beans on something. There could be some very important things.
Seriously.
But there's a lot to be said when she's going to a fundraiser one place, decides to stop in Tooele County, and I'm in here, I'll do your show with you for 2 hours.
I am not going again.
That's pretty unreal.
Seriously,
actually. But I agree with you.
I love Celeste. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. I am not happy, and if she does something that I'm not happy with, we got a hold of her that very week and said,
"Oh, within hours."
I messaged her and I says, "Why did you vote like this?" And she called me back that night. She called me back and says, "All right, here's why we did it." I said, "Can we get you to come on the show?" And she said, "Yes, I will be on your show."
And she came in person. That was a surprise.
Yes, and so she's very willing to. She's not happy that she had to vote that way, and we don't know all the inside about it. But I think she's happy, and I'm not trying to blow up anyone's skirt either. I still want you guys to vote your conscience when it comes to the Congress.
This is not an easy vote.
I've had 4 or 5 people messaging me, I got my ballot, who should I vote for?
I as well. And this is the one race I've actually said that there are such good candidates in this race. We've had Colby on. He is a great guy. Mm-hmm. He knows so much. He's a leader. He is a, I know as a candidate, he is a bright, shiny star. And you say end PACs. I say sometimes it's PACs that can get a grassroots candidate over the finish line, unfortunately. So I see good
I don't
and bad
care.
with PACs.
I don't care.
But it's right.
I don't
eliminate these
we need to get rid of them.
monstrosities of budgets that go into campaigning.
We need to get rid of Citizens United, because I think unions and corporations should not have the same weight of voice as the populace.
Right.
And there should never be a circumstance where, let's throw out Butthole Corp has, because they have more money, has Butthole Corp.
What's that?
I don't know. It's just a made up thing.
Why
it's
do you
a
always
company
gotta go there?
But,
and you know, our last show, you didn't mention the G word once.
I know, I've been real good about it. But they should not carry the same weight because of their money as Just,
you or me.
just the regular people on
Yeah.
the street. Because when one corporation can donate enough to outweigh thousands of $5 donations, we've got to do away with it. And I think it was an atrocity. And the Republicans are feeling it now because the Democrats all the time outperform Republicans on getting donations. And it was the Republicans who pushed it through.
So Dave asks Gary, how so? He was depressed. This is a clear reason we need guns on drones. You haven't mentioned Bitcoin yet, bro. Feds would think twice if they're faced by a robot flamethrower dog. I mean, think about it. If robot flamethrower dogs were a pet you could own,
You can buy them.
but used to protect your home and against invasion, that changes the game
Imagine
big time.
like if your daughter, she's a young girl, and imagine if she's like going to go out and play and you just turn on the robot dog and it just shadow her.
Right now I'm using a big mean dog already, but a robot
Does
dog.
she take
you
she
shoot
take
that
the dog
robot
down to the
dog-
park?
No, but we don't have a
Yeah.
down to the park.
Oh, really?
I mean, she plays in the lake with him all the
Okay,
time.
perfect.
But so Mayor Critchlow says, go Celeste, you need the full term. And Mayor Critchlow, for anyone that doesn't know, is the mayor of Grantsville, which is also a rural, small town, but a very well-run town. And I mean, I love Grantsville. I love the mayor. And I know that she has had very personal meetings with him regarding the issues that his town and his city faces. So again, I can tell you this, it is a tough election. You guys have to do your research and figure out what you see, what you've experienced. But for me, I like to know what my sheriff thinks. I like to know what my local mayors think on issues that these guys are all standing up for, because they're your direct representative and they have to see your face. So I think our local government, and I've said this a million times, they affect my life far more than what happens in DC. And they're also far more accountable to you. So their opinion does matter to me.
And you can get a hold of them quite easy.
Absolutely.
Although
Or run into them in
here's
places.
the biggest note on Celeste is anytime I've had a question, I've gotten a response from her. I know she earned Mayor Critchlow by meeting with him and giving him her complete attention when she was running. And I know he appreciates that.
And she probably has her phone number and can get her attention.
Probably does. David Weiss says flamethrower dogs with body cams. Gary asked, did Celeste just disparage the people of Arkansas?
No, Walmart, I believe their headquarters is in Arkansas. Is it
Yeah,
not?
and that's where they started
She
out.
said, oh, that is so Arkansas.
Yeah,
to
for anyone
have
who knows,
a meeting at Walmart, because that is the birthplace.
Sam Walton was born there. His son that then took over, I believe his son was an 18 Charlie in the Army. For any of you vets out there, you probably know what an 18 Charlie is. It's a pretty high class MOS. But anyways, that took over from Arkansas, and the whole family still lives there in a Walmart
Well, and that's
compound.
where it all started.
Yep.
And so that's kind of a paying homage to Arkansas, because of course they met at a Walmart. Walmart is a big deal there, and it's a big deal now around. We even have Walmart here. We've had it for years.
I remember the first time I went to a Walmart, I was about 11, and I went on like a family vacation to
I went when I was like 16.
rural Illinois.
First time.
And I remember the buildup saying, we're going to Walmart. And it was crazy back then. I was 11, maybe 12. It was crazy back then. The price disparities you saw between Walmart and any of the local stores
But
we had
remember,
out here.
Walmart didn't have groceries at first, at least the one in Taylorsville that I would go to when I was like 16.
Yeah.
It was like a clothing, outdoor, guns. It was like a department store
Yep.
that the price disparaging was like, holy cow.
It was crazy. I remember that. I remember
I
I
can afford this.
bought 2 CDs there because of the price, or 2 cassette tapes. Sorry,
You didn't have to go to a mall because there was stuff everywhere.
And how I had enough money for a cassette tape had I gone to the mall where I usually got my music.
Yeah.
I could buy 2 of them, and I thought it was fantastic.
Remember though, it was like a Kmart, but cooler.
A
It
Kmart
was
that
like
had
the Target versus Walmart. Now it was like Kmart versus Walmart, and then Walmart was beating Kmart prices.
and Kmart didn't have Kmart didn't have a vast music selection. Kmart,
Or electronics in general.
yeah, Kmart had
The large TVs and
the stuff that you had to get by with, clothing and shoes. Where
the
Walmart
blue light special.
also, but anyways,
Yeah. Hi guys. Off the rails. There we go.
Dave said he was probably selling Bitcoin. You're talking about the guy in Arkansas. That's the new door kicker crime of the year. We do need to check in with some Bitcoin guys lately.
So Gary says that local sheriffs should arrest FBI agents who violate state law. That is the key.
Oh, that's
If there's accountability from local government when they do raids like this, especially without local sheriffs involved, there absolutely should be something.
Is he talking about the the people down now? Right now, I don't think there is a law that says the FBI has to be in contact with local law enforcement.
or
That
has
should
to wear body cams.
that should be put in.
That's
The
called policy.
Arkansas police who removed their body cams, I would check in to see if Arkansas has a policy on that.
It's going to be a
But
department
then
policy.
here's
probably.
the rough thing is just those local law enforcement guys will get hit with that. The ATF, even if they told them, if you want to come on this raid, you must remove your body cam, they won't get a punishment at all. So Congress needs to
right.
decide
Is it-
on a law of
Is that jurisdiction then? The FBI's jurisdiction is the United States, whereas the Arkansas police, their jurisdiction, they're bound by that. Whereas the FBI can say, we're not bound by Arkansas jurisdiction.
because the FBI is bound by their policies, not jurisdiction, their policies.
Right. So
And
that's a
so
mess.
what they need to do is, here's Congress right now. I'm just going to tell you right now. If you so choose, but if were I would write up a policy that contact with local law enforcement must be made. And local law enforcement should be the point man on initial contact. And then I would also write up another one that says federal law enforcement body cams must be worn with all interactions with the public. That includes an FBI investigation into anything, because we're finding out from Jan 6, we're finding out from a lot of interactions that we need to.
Now maybe
I would have a carve out for foreign intelligence.
You here's what they're going to say. Their answer is going to be no, because it's Homeland Security type information.
That's when you
you're
say
not privy to. However, there should be, maybe there's protections in the public access.
That's when you say
body cams.
That's when you
but
say
the Congress should have access.
We're Congress and this is a law, and you don't let them say no. Now, if it's foreign intelligence, fine.
Yeah, because it's not dealing with constitutional rights.
You've got to have direct carve outs for that. Clear,
Absolutely.
easy to understand.
Well, you know what else would help? If our state legislature developed that law
Would
for
that
Utah,
apply?
and then our county legislature develops that law for county,
The question is would that be
would the
enforceable?
FBI be able to, that's what I mean about jurisdiction, would they be able to overstep our local laws because they're
Because
federal?
let's lay this out. The FBI is not constitutional.
Well, you said it.
Nor
I
is
didn't.
no, they're not. Where in the Constitution does it say?
Nowhere, folks.
So that's the question. So there's a lot of
Neither is the
unconstitutional
CIA.
things being done, which is why
Neither
we
is the Board of Education
yeah.
or the
Dave says, I'm down with dissolving the FBI. Dave says, I'm more afraid of the database than the criminals they are protecting us from. Yes.
Seriously. And honestly, I know it sounds cheeky, but if you had to pay every American for their data, think about how different things would be. Now, I know that movie stars and stuff are having fights over, and they've gone on strike in the past over AI using their likeness. Because if you think about it, AI could replace a movie star in a movie. And if you know Ryan Reynolds is going to sell a movie no matter what he puts out, they're not going to pay Ryan Reynolds $20 million if they can have any AI do it for free.
Just
And yet use his likeness. Well, this has to be figured out now, because AI is only getting smarter every single day. But our data is worth more than any type of currency. Data is the number one asset for people right now. So I almost think you have to develop something, one, protections from AI and using your likeness in any shape or form, including your voice, without your authorization. And there should be a contract set in place where anyone who uses your likeness or voice, you have to be paid. If you're a movie star, if you're a regular citizen, I think that something has to be in place, because data is going to be the thing that controls the world.
We're definitely moving that way. Gary says, what right does Malloy have to take the votes out of the hands of Santos constituents in New York? I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Right. Santos's constituents should have voted him out.
And the
if that's what they
Republicans, tend to do that historically. They're concerned with a lot of more of an honor culture with the Republicans in Santos. But man, Santos is...
So he says Santos was going to be a long-term haunting, and the mayor says Maryland for the gold bars.
Neil Critchlow said Santos was going to be a long-term haunting. He probably was. Yeah, I don't know. What Santos was doing is he was in there kicking up a stink of all kind of the corruption that he was seeing in Congress. He was open about it. So the bad news about that is it does make Congress look like they were, I'm not saying they were, but it does make it look like they were running some protectionism when they kicked him out. And then is he Maryland or is he Chicago? I can't remember. But anyways.
So is that correct, Cher? That Tooele was the first Walmart in Utah?
I believe so. The old Walmart, which is now Cal Ranch, was our Walmart.
No kidding.
Yes, and it was the best design because it was a square. So you'd walk in and you'd walk straight in and you'd go down and walk around and you could go through there and grab everything you needed when you knew what you were looking for. And yeah, so it was, yeah. And then when they built the new one and added all the other stuff, it kind of messed us up. All right. So we really don't have anything else to talk about.
What do you mean? We got a lot to talk about.
Oh, we do? Oh, okay. All right. Carry on, Holly. What else do we have to talk about?
So I am currently working on this week. We have Patriot Camp.
Oh,
happening,
yeah, the Patriot Camp.
And
making
Celeste,
little kids honorable young citizens.
I am honored to be able to work with some fantastic volunteers who are strong, amazing women who have been just awesome. And we have got 2 camps, a morning and an afternoon. And there is so many kids that are just making me smile every second. And they're extraordinary teenagers. And this year we did something different where my partner Ashley and I, we actually did interviews with the teenagers, and we showed them how to do an interview and how to dress for interviews and how to answer questions that are asked of them, how to be on time. I know, funny for those that know me, but I was on time for them.
Of course, she showed up to this, show them how to do an interview 5 minutes late.
No, I didn't. I was actually I was actually great. But we did this because we wanted to have the teenagers highly involved, of course, but we also work with them every day regarding situations that come up. If there's a kid that they see needs a little extra help, or if there's, a kid that maybe needs his attention over, moved somewhere else, and they're learning along with the kids, but they're also contributing. They're getting their team cohesiveness, and they're supporting each other, and they're being the example to the young kids. And I just love it. I love the work that we do, and I love the young lives and watching their little light bulbs go off when they get to talk to Thomas Jefferson, or we had Abraham Lincoln yesterday, and they're asking all these questions. A lot of them were about his assassination, but there's so much complexity to Abraham Lincoln. But
every boy in the room, what was it like?
Well, and that's the thing. So you've got all the different age groups. We get 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, some are 5, and then 6-year-olds all the way up to 13. And when they're 14, they can be teen leaders. And it's just such a fulfilling experience. And the team that we work with, we all do it because we just love the founding. We love telling the story. But a lot of us realize that this age, they have to save our republic.
Or rebuild whatever's
or
next.
Or rebuild it. And that's the thing. The younger we get the younger people to have an appreciation for the miracle that is America and the miracles it took to actually create a country from its founding, and the sacrifices made and the unknowns and the teamwork. I mean, the Constitutional Convention, that was like a fight club. Mm-hmm. And that fight club was necessary. Freedom of speech, to be able to say and do and have free thought and discuss, was absolutely necessary. And we've seen now, and I always think this as we're teaching these kids stuff, there's actual situations happening in the country they could ask about now that are in violation of the Constitution, like you said. And how do we literally teach these kids to appreciate the Constitution, to know it, to know the Bill of Rights, and to actually live in a world where we've seen them violated? And that, to me, we've got to teach young people the importance of it. But the only outcome, the only option we have is with voting power. And until we, as a team of American citizens, decide that we are all in the same boat and we need to handle what needs to be handled in DC with voting power and getting rid of the problem, the people, the organizations, these departments that are taking away our freedoms every single day, and that it doesn't matter if we're black, white, Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, rich, poor, we're all victims of a tyrannical government.
Well, I mean, unless you're the super rich, then you've bought the government.
That's if you're super rich and decided to put your money into bad policy and bad politicians.
Okay, everyone but
you're
Elon.
The crony. You're the crony. I've seen billionaires now that just donated to Trump.
Sure.
That normally have funded Democrat campaigns because of what they witnessed with this Trump outcome.
Oh, and could that also be because of the real estate implications? Yeah. No, it's interesting. I was thinking today, so Holly's not going to be here Friday. She's going to be at Patriot Camp. So it'll either be me running it solo or I'll find someone to come in with me. And we're going to have a Democrat guest on Friday. I'm excited for that. But so I've been thinking and I can't think of a time in history where a government has retracted its power. Not like on wholesale. And I think that like right now, the only thing that could really save our if you're a Republican or a Republic, or if you're a Democrat or democracy, would be to lean on the 10th Amendment and to allow other states to select which fortunes they're going to pursue and how they're going to pursue them, which also allows people to use the ultimate democratic power, and that is the foot vote. And to let bad ideas to be proven, like 100% proven. And whether that's the argument on First Amendment rights or Second Amendment rights or abortion rights or any weird little hippie right, or whether you want to celebrate gay month, you know, in a thong, let those be
Not in front of kids.
let those be expressed, and let the foot vote decide which is correct. And
When
that's
you say
by
foot vote, what do you mean?
if, let's say, Utah starts doing something that I find repugnant, I move, I leave.
Oh, I see. Like the
And-
people of California.
Yes.
Yep, that makes sense.
And let that happen. And then we need to go
Require
beyond
sacrifice,
that.
but for what you believe in.
We need to have a census. I would honestly say we need to ideally figure out how to hold one every, at the most, 4 years, so that we can let that foot vote have teeth in congressional representation.
I agree. I think the same goes for schools.
Yeah.
If you do not like the school your child is in, pull them out.
Yep.
Find a school you like, be it private, public, or homeschool them yourself, and vote with your dollars, essentially. I mean, with your child.
Yep.
And what you think
The
is
ultimate
best.
vote.
That's absolutely how you maintain your family principles.
The
I
ultimate
think.
vote is denial of participation. And I think the only way we can do that is to lean on the 10th Amendment real hard. Let the states decide all the things that's not directly in the Constitution. And that would take the federal government saying, okay, we're going to relinquish some power.
Well, states also have to be prepared to not take money from the federal government.
The federal government shouldn't be offering.
No, you're right. But what I'm saying is this is the reality. And
Yeah.
the reality is states take a lot of money from the federal government. And if the state's leadership could say, okay, Utahns, we're going to quit taking money from the federal government for schools. This is all going to come back on us now. But in return, Common Core is gone. So is all these certain, federal rules. We're going to stop taking money here. We're going to stop taking money here. It's all going to be on the backs of the citizens of Utah. So we need you all to be ready. But I think that would be, I would love to see a state that says no more. We're not taking your funding, and we're not taking your strings attached either.
Here's the question. Do you think our state gets enough money from the federal government do you think that we're taxed enough by federal and state that if the state took over that same amount of tax, it could pay for everything it utilizes right now without having to take money from the federal government? Because the federal government perverts that system by printing money. The
Right.
federal government's able to print money to buy people off and other nations and other stuff. But I wonder, would our state, if it took the same amount of taxes that the population gives out on both federal and statewide, if our state just were restricted to that, would our state have more money to work with, the same, or would they lose money?
That's
And
what
that's
I
a
mean.
question.
You would not know, and it's that uncharted waters to say. We would have to be prepared because it could cost us individually more to get the federal government out.
Yeah.
A lot of people will fight it tooth and nail because they depend on that federal money. And I'm not talking about citizens. I'm talking about government,
Oh, yeah.
local
And
governments.
that's the question. It makes you wonder if they do. what kind of situation would we be in? And would some states, and some states have a great big old cheat code, like being next to a big body of water or having Disney World. Some states have it lucky like that.
What do you mean tourism dollars?
Yeah, a cheat code that brings not just tourism, but industry. Having a body of water, having an ocean next to you brings ports, which was initially the way our government made money, was simply off of tariffs.
Well, and tourism dollars it's nothing to shake off.
No, it is not.
It is a huge industry for states, and even Utah is one of those. We have an amazing tourism. Tourism is huge in Utah, just for our parks, especially.
Yeah.
Our parks, and then the temple,
and the winter.
The skiing, right?
People come from all over to Park City to ski.
And people come from all over the world to do four-wheeling rides and trails, things like that. My mother and stepfather used to it was the Jamboree. I think, if I'm wrong, Mom, tell me, but I think it was called the Jamboree down in Richfield. And they would get people from all over the world to come do this Jamboree, the four-wheeling and side-by-sides, and do this really, really long trail. I think it was like 100 miles. My mom would know because she used to lead some of it. And years ago, and they would talk to these people, and they'd be from everywhere. So it's actually so important that states have their sovereignty and that you have your freedom. And I think it's really hard when the two mesh and there's disagreement, and it's not an easy thing.
The
so we're
question
still live
is,
on Facebook.
Yeah, the question is, can we claw it back?
We have to. There's no alternative.
We don't have to. There's a matter of fact, I would say if we go historically, we don't. Historically
for who?
For every other empire that's ever existed ever.
But we're America, and we're the first of its kind.
And they all said that.
Right. Well, that's why I say we have to. We have to preserve the nation that was built for us, even if that means tearing it down first and rebuilding it. But again, Americans have no idea what pain is. They have no idea, and we're all hurting right now.
We're not even hurting
but
yet.
We don't know what hurt really is that other countries experience throughout history. So say the line about hard times.
Oh yeah.
Now is the time to say it.
Yeah, the hard times make strong men make good times make weak men. And tell me about our president right now.
The cadaver in chief.
It's not just that. It's also our cultural leadership seems to be weaker.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a few great men out there running around right now, and they're supremely hated. Elon Musk is hated. Anyone left of center hates him. They loved him before that, but he's hated.
They loved Trump before he ran for office.
But Elon's kind of a great man. He's doing wild things.
He's a dreamer.
He's kind of a wild man. He's a horrible communicator at times. He's okay on Twitter, but I think when he's doing the interviews in person,
I love him.
I think he actually has to kind of, like, you're watching him and he kind of seems like he slows down because he's trying to communicate with the average, like a guy like me. He wants that message to come across the bow to also, me and my fellow dummies. But we don't have the same kind of great men. Like, we don't have great generals right now. We don't have great authors.
What makes a great general?
Their boldness.
They're not wearing a
MacArthur,
dress and have a beard.
MacArthur was a great general, and he was part hated. What MacArthur did to the bonus army was awful. And he stood over
Don't wars make great generals?
The massacre of.
Because that's what I mean. Like, I would rather have a great.
Kinda, but MacArthur got his greatness prior between wars. The war just, put a cherry on it. But he had his greatness because he was bold and he was out there. Smedley Butler and the exploits that he did, first as a Marine and then at the attempted coup by George Bush's grandpa.
Okay. Well, I mean,
but
we
don't
do need great men.
It's not just that, but it just feels
and
like
women.
Everything, and maybe it's we've entered this new communication age, so maybe everything is just so vapid and vacuous.
It's true. Yeah.
Everything's shot in the pan, fly by night. It's all visual acuity and not, like right now. Do you know how many people climbed Everest last year or any of their names?
No.
Yeah, me too.
But it's been done.
Sure.
How many people shot a car into space?
Sure, it's been done, but you would think that every year there would be a report that would come out, and
I'm sure
at least some part of the population would want to know who crossed that Rubicon.
I think you're touching on it, and that is we're living in an information age, and it's more about who's got the best message to sell and how often can they get it repeated to get fame. And we're seeing that because kids are sitting in front of they're sitting there in front of a TikTok
looks.
And TikTok's telling them culture. TikTok's telling them what's cool. And then they're bringing all this attention to certain, individuals and making them bigger than life. And yet, yes, the real hardworking, successful, build stuff from the ground up, and the success stories are just not getting told, or their messaging isn't getting out in the same way, or it's not as enjoyable for the average TikToker or whatever, so they're not sharing it. It's an information age, and it's making us less smart, I think.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, personally, I like scrolling TikTok and seeing what news is going on, because you hear about news you don't hear about anywhere else on there.
I agree.
Because
that's something you're choosing to follow.
And they're also
the message going out.
They're also learning how to get you the most information as fast as possible, good or bad.
I watched a video where they're talking about drinking borax.
There's also morons on there.
Our older folks, our boomers, are enjoying a borax treatment.
I don't know.
And they're the same people that made fun of the kids who were eating Tide Pods.
Is borax deadly?
You use it to clean.
You use vinegar to clean too.
Are you drinking it?
A lot of people drink
Apple
vinegar.
cider vinegar, yeah, but it's found in your laundry room. Borax is a chemical, and they're saying it's giving them revived power or less joint pain or something. It has no regulation because it's not a non-food product.
So
it's meant for cleaning. So in the United States, there's no controls. You could be drinking tainted whatever, and they're putting this in their drink, and they're drinking
So this is like the
Tide Pod era.
The silver challenge, like the old people challenge.
Yeah, but this is my thing. If you want I think it's boron or something. That's the mineral that's in borax. If you want that mineral and you see that it has health effects, even though doctors have said on a lot of these videos, this is not smart. Stop drinking stuff that you find in your laundry room.
Well, I know Tide Pods.
If they wanted that, then a company should take that mineral and put it through the Food and Drug Administration to have it be a mineral for human consumption. But because borax is not for human consumption.
I look.
That's just one example.
I don't know anything about that.
Culture crap.
Like I found out about that stabbing in Ohio. I should have asked Jim Jordan about that.
You didn't have enough time. What, stabbing?
Some psycho woman just like coming out of a Target. Grabbed a knife out of the store. I'm shooting off memory. I'm probably all wrong, but followed a new mother and her 3-year-old and just stabbed him out of the blue. Didn't know him, anything else. Just had like a break with reality. Killed the 3-year-old. The mother's okay, but physically she'll never be okay. And just like,
did the new baby die?
Yeah, the 3-year-old died.
Oh, you said a new mother. I thought you meant
Okay,
she
well,
had like a
3-year-olds.
brand new infant.
No, she didn't. But a mother and her 3-year-old,
Horrific.
and stabbed a 3-year-old, and we're in a low trust society. We're having all these effects, and you know, I went and did that thing on Saturday. This
Yeah, let's talk about it. I think that's really
or it
interesting.
ended up being on Monday, but
because I won't be here Friday, so
okay.
fill me in.
All right. So went there. 4 of us were that brought there. It's Better Angels is kind of the program they run. It's how to communicate better, argue better. And they brought us there. And so I represented kind of the crazy, kooky, conservatarian thing.
Conservatarian.
And then we had Katie Anderton Adams, who's the chair of the Utah Democrat Party, was there.
Okay, Katie's actually been on the show, right?
Yes, and Katie's a wonderful lady, and I'm going to reach out to her and see if she'll come on again soon. She was there representing the Democrat Party, and so was Celeste, Democrat challenger, who he's going to be on the show on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Nathaniel, he'll be on. He was a nice guy, and he represented Democrats. And then there was another Republican, a writer for the Deseret News. I think her name's Megan Nielsen, I think. She was there representing. So, and it was kind of a good mix because you had rural, kind of conservative, me. And then you had urban Democrat, Katie, and then rural Democrat, Nathaniel, and then urban Republican with the other Megan. And so just the different objectives, you know, and the different ideals. And you can definitely see where, like, me and Nathaniel saw eye to eye, not eye to eye, but we could
You
at
could find
least
common ground and have a conversation.
like firearms ownership. He's still not happy about, you know, assault weapons, the evil black word, you know.
Did you know what an assault weapon was?
Nobody does. Nobody. They have it in their mind, but honestly,
Many think AR stands for assault rifle.
well, I know, but that's what they picture when they say it. They don't think someone needs to have detachable magazines with, you know, multiple rounds in them, whatever.
They're really cool.
Yes, they are really cool. I mean, come on.
What's wrong with people?
It's because he doesn't have one.
Okay, and he
I'm
hasn't
having him,
tried it
and
yet.
actually, Katie says she gets triggered by guns, and she approached me after, and she says, "I think I'm ready to you know, cross that barrier and go shooting." And I says, "You come out anytime."
Oh, that would be amazing.
Heck yeah, I'm gonna get her sold. Then she'll be buying a gun, and I'm actually going out
That's
this
amazing
Saturday.
of her to actually consider it.
Yes, to get past the trigger. I'm actually on Saturday. I'm going with a friend of mine's sister, who she's almost 60, and she wants to buy her first gun and learn how to shoot. And
That's
so I'm going to
amazing.
embark down that
Do you
road
mind
with
if
her.
I read Jeff Addison's comment? He
Please
says
do.
Food and Drug would classify it as a drug, then someone would get a patent, and your 25-cent borax would then be $180 with insurance. Now, I fully understand that, but whatever the chemical is in borax that these people are trying to get is a mineral that could be made by vitamin companies.
Yeah,
but
if the
these
patent was to run
companies-
out after 7 years.
Well, you can't put a patent on a mineral that's been around for 1,000 years. And there are minerals, but doctors say that they haven't been proven that these are even working, especially using a chemical. But here's my bottom line. If you don't have Food and Drug standards, wherever it's produced, like the borax you have in your laundry room, is produced in a factory without the same regulations and standards. So you could have toxic chemicals in it. You could have rat feces. You could have whatever that don't have to, whenever it's mentioned that it is for human consumption, different standards apply, at least in America, to how that food is handled, how it's processed, the cleanliness of the place, different than if you're creating the borax that you have in your laundry room. It's different. They're not worried about that because it's not for human consumption.
Yeah.
So that does matter. Now, if you had a patent for something and you created something with boron and something else, and it's basically a vitamin, then you deserve to make money on it, is my opinion. I don't mean Big Pharma's going out to buy that patent or whatever, just because they haven't found proof, and that's been around forever. I mean, Mother, how long has borax been around? I mean, they know that chemical is in there, that mineral.
So I've told you before how Katie watches shows before bed, and for a while there it was Baywatch, and then it was Hell's Kitchen.
I love Hell's Kitchen.
The new one is we're watching reruns. There's a whole channel on Vizio TV or whatever.
I like Vizio. That's where I get my Judge Judy. Or no, that's Freebie. Sorry,
And
Freebie.
you talking about eating stuff. It's been Fear Factor for 3 weeks now.
Oh, go Joe Rogan.
Last night watching two guys and a tiny little girl eating a cup of worms.
Yeah, no.
And
Do you know what I watch every night?
And then the other one, they ate buffalo testicles, and there's
Were
like
they cooked?
Nope.
Ick.
And there's like a hard shell, and so like they got to bite through the shell and peel it out.
Absolutely not.
And then they ate cow brains, and like they ate like
Things people do for fame, and this was happening
They were
15
making-
years ago, 20 years ago?
they made $50,000. They did that for money.
Just to show up, or
The
winner?
winner,
Yeah, see,
$50,000.
the other two didn't.
Still, the chance to make $50,000 in a day and a half.
My stepsister participated in a local Fear Factor and had to eat cockroaches, and they were alive.
Did she eat them?
Oh, yeah.
She did it?
Yeah, she did it.
That's awesome. I did a family one, and my sisters planned it. I won
Of course she did.
because I ate ice cream with sardines mixed in it.
Okay, that's...
They're easy.
There's people who eat sardines for fun.
I eat sardines for fun.
Any pregnant woman would be like, I can see it.
Yeah. Does it have to be vanilla? Can I get some mint in there?
Yeah, you put a mint chocolate chip. So at night I've been watching. Now, women, and probably men, but women who do watch some television, I tend to go to YouTube, or I only stream. I don't have cable. But we go in waves of what we're into. And we will kill it. Like, we'll watch it to death.
Every episode.
Yes, and I will power through all of it. So I'm with Katie. Like, I have to see every Hell's Kitchen, and then I watch Hell's Kitchen in Britain and Hell's Kitchen in other countries, and as long as it's got Gordon Ramsay. But lately I've been on YouTube watching just body cam videos of law enforcement interaction. And I keep saying to myself, why does anyone want to be a police officer anymore? It is so insane to see what they go through on a simple call that should be like, how many times? It's such a teaching experience for my kids, though, because I'm like, rule number one, when you're engaging with law enforcement,
Don't be that guy.
Comply, do what they ask, keep your mouth shut, make sure you've got a valid driver's license and everything else, and give it to them. But at the same time, more of these people talk themselves into going to jail, or behave in a way the officer has no choice but to take them to jail because of disorderly conduct. If they would just talk to the officer, if they're being cited for something, take the citation. The fight belongs in the courtroom, not on the side of the street. You don't throw a fit and disrespect, because a lot of these officers, you watch these body cams, the things that are said to them, and the officer is still listening to what they say. You're allowed to call an officer whatever you want, but your aggression is not allowed. And I'm just saying, telling my kid, watch this. This woman talks herself into going to jail. She would have had a simple ticket for a seatbelt or expired reg or something like that. But no, she's combative with officers right away. Officers start to think, well, what is she hiding? Because your behavior. And then it ends up at the end of the day that she gets on disorderly, assault on a police officer. She has made herself look like an absolute fool. And officers sometimes they have discretion whether or not they tow your vehicle after a situation. Well, after you've called them every name in the book, or been racist to them, or absolutely ridiculous to them, maybe they don't have your mom come grab your car. You can pick it up and impound because that's something they usually have discretion on.
$400 that, well,
They talk themselves into
there's
this.
a lot to it. But then again, you also see body cams where the police officers need to be professional a little more
Which is
too.
exactly why every officer should have a body cam.
And I agree.
To protect themselves and to protect
Yeah,
you.
and it makes everyone just more honest in the situation.
Better behaved.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I like watching Joe Rogan. I usually watch most of the Tim Pool, depending on where it goes. Sometimes
When you say Joe Rogan, you mean his podcast?
yeah.
Yeah, I love certain shows.
Yeah,
But I love UFC. I love watching it. I
Yeah.
don't love boxing. My husband and I used to be adamant with getting every boxing.
I enjoy
My
boxing
husband
as
was
well.
a boxer. But when UFC came out, it felt so more real than boxing because it's usually a decision with boxing. After Mike Tyson, it just kind of went downhill, right? He would knock him out. And you'd be mad you paid $50 for that pay-per-view that lasted 3 seconds,
I've
right?
got a friend, my uncle's friend. He went to Tyson's Vegas fight against a guy's named Foster.
How long ago?
This would have been in
80s?
90, probably like 95. It was right in the peak, right before he went to jail. And
Had he bitten an ear off yet?
no, that was after he got out of jail. But anyways, he went there. He went to the Vegas fight. He paid. This is in 90s money. He paid
Tons of money.
He paid like $1,100, which would be like paying $5,000 right now.
Oh, yeah.
He went there and he was pissed. He
Because it was over so fast.
He said he walked in and he had a drink and some other concession. And he walked in and he sat down and he looked to the side to put his drink down or something and looked back up and the fight had ended.
That's what I mean.
He said they started the fight. I didn't get to see a punch thrown.
Mike Tyson was a beast.
Dude, it still is. He's about to.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see
how he does.
I think. Look, unless this is pretend,
He's the GOAT.
Mike Tyson is an animal. He is. He's a machine.
Oh, his punch power is incredible. But here's what my point
And
is.
he's built like a
when
brick.
UFC come out, that was a game changer
Yeah.
for me. Because it wasn't about decision. It was like, you get to see it live. It was like watching it was Fight Club, right?
It was like watching a bar fight in the beginning.
And it was
Like
so cool. And
the
Joe
old,
Rogan was back then.
Was it the old Brave? Was that the original one? Brave? The Brave fights? And then when Utah had that one
Yeah, I
where
was
that
at the-
Tooele police officer, what was his name? Was
The
it
redheaded
Strickland?
guy?
No, he wasn't redheaded. He ran it. What was his name?
Oh, I thought you meant the fighter. There was
I
a
got a
police
story-
officer fighter.
I
at the
got a
Salt Lake
story
one.
about him. No, the
Had
guy
his
who-
back broken.
The Tooele police officer was the guy that ran it when Utah had it. And that was big for. I got a story to tell you about him later on. But
So what I'm getting at is I love UFC and we always get the fights and it's always a good time. And then you've got so many different fights happening that night. So if it is over in the first round, then, great. We got another fight and it's always good. And I love it. I love it. When I watch Joe Rogan, though, my eyes start to glaze over because a lot of his shows are fight based and talking about the fights, and he gets into
some of
it.
them,
And I've
not a
watched
lot
him
of
go
them.
into politics since COVID, and a lot of his shows are really good. He
Yeah.
gets really good guests on.
well, he does the fight companion, and if you're not into listening to the technical side or behind the scenes,
Yeah.
I could see it being. But
It's boring.
I like when he has scientists on. I
Yeah.
like when he has on anthropologists, or anytime a good comedian comes on. His conversation with Tucker was fantastic, and Trigonometry, another show I watch all the time. But it's got to, and I run the circuit. Tim Pool's show was one that I was religious about, but it's feeling a little too angry right now all the time.
I would love all of you who are watching to leave a comment of what you're watching right now, because that's something that I always, when I get done,
don't
binging on something.
please don't leave a
then-
comment saying I'm watching you guys right now.
Okay, listen. I'm talking. You know what I
Jason.
mean. So I'm always, when I finish binging something, then I'm always deciding like, well, what should I start next? And I do binge, and I don't sleep really. So
Here's another crazy one.
I will go through it, and I always want people to give me ideas, because if I don't like it, I turn it off. But I have gotten some of the best. Like, I avoided Game of Thrones for the entire course of the seasons, and I tried to avoid hearing anything about it. And then when HBO started streaming it, I still wasn't going to buy HBO because I'm cheap.
Not for
And
me to put my pinky up, but
they
I read the
came in.
books.
It came in with a free trial of HBO, and you got like a month free for a trial. So I got on the trial. I binged the entire Game of Thrones, every season. I loved it. I loved it.
Well,
I mean, I would have liked a different ending, but I did love it.
I got into the Game of Thrones from the books because someone turned me onto the books a long time ago. But I watch a lot of leftist podcasts as well. Because
I'm glad
one,
somebody's doing that.
well,
for the show.
I watched Destiny. Destiny's extremely popular. He's very good. I wouldn't call him leftist. I would call him,
You just did, though.
I mean, compared to, I would call him center Democrat. And
What is he on YouTube?
oh yeah, Destiny's on YouTube and Twitch and everywhere. He's the guy who went against, or didn't go against, but he's debated. You've seen him debate on all the shows. But Destiny he's good. He's intelligent. I've got a policy, and I wish I could convince everyone to do this. That when you have a gut reaction to something you hear,
Look for the counter.
nope. You stop and you question, why do I have this gut reaction? And you steel man the opposing idea in your mind to yourself. Anytime you have a gut reaction, you've got to steel man the opposition.
I try to do that. But I grew up doing debate, and that's
Yeah.
part of the debate training.
But that's why I like listening to Destiny, because he will say a lot of things. Like, he's got some derangement that is out there, and he does have good points why he has it, but he'll say something and that'll make me go, okay, I heard that. Why does my elephant go stomping down this path when he says that? And that's a theory. You need to read Jonathan Haidt, The Elephant
You
and the
tell
Rider.
me to read everything. I can't. Who's got time to read?
You can listen to it. It's an audiobook. But so what it is you've got two emotional drivers. You've got the elephant and the rider. And the elephant is what happens subconsciously. It's your gut. It's your emotions.
Sure.
And the rider is when you sit down and make conscious thought and conscious decision about it. And
Yeah, so when you use the phrase triggered, that's what you're talking
Yes.
about. When something triggers you,
that's your emotional.
stop and think, wait,
I
why
stop
is
and
this
think, okay,
triggering me?
like the gun argument,
Oh, yeah.
because the gun argument is very close to home for me, or First Amendment, like when if I was to say the phrase, I am completely okay with people burning the American flag, how does that make you feel?
Fine.
My gut reaction, my elephant says that's sacrilege.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is, but I also know that that's what freedom is.
But yes. So not only am I fine with it, but I support them in doing it, because that's like the ultimate expression of being competent in yourself, is saying, I will give you complete rights over how you feel
as long
about
as it's
me.
not attached to my house.
As long as you buy it. Like when I was at that meeting, at that thing, that was brought up, and I said, I'm fine with it. And the other girl says, but at what cost? And I said, I don't know. It depends on where you buy it and how big it is.
And as long as you bought it.
And she sat there and went, what?
It's interesting, but I think if all of us did that, I mean, I've had a situation happen recently where I was so angry. I haven't been this angry in a long time. And I try to be a professional at all times, and I try to handle myself with a certain professionalism. And that moment where, for me, where the anger gets me and I notice it, before I react, I try to, for me, some people will do a small check in your brain, and I will do a prayer to say, help me breathe through this, help me be rational, help me keep this here, right? It's such it's a hard thing to do. And a lot of people aren't doing this, where they check themselves. They let their anger or their emotion decide the next step without actually checking yourself and saying, first of all, is what is happening fair? Is what is happening personal? Is it true? Is it not true? Is there any way you get to control it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's happening around you, but not to you, doesn't have to affect you. It's like the mask thing in grocery stores, height of the pandemic. The people not wearing a mask were triggering people to a point where they're ganging up on
They were
that person.
acting like maniacs.
Yeah, it was Lord of the Flies. And
They
and
were walking up
truth
like
is,
jets.
if you can control it, then you better control it. If it's affecting you directly, you better face it and call it what it is and handle it. If it's happening around you, walk away
Yeah.
and stay away from it. And I think that's what people are forgetting, that it's not always about you. Walk away. It's when you can't and don't have that option to walk away, or it's personally about you and you don't stand up for yourself in that time, in that moment. You think about, what are the effects that are going to happen if I don't handle it in the moment?
My favorite thing is if something like that should trigger you, instead of walking away, I like to explore Socratically with them. Ask them, oh, okay, can you explain to me this?
When it's a personal attack on
and
you and there's no way to defend yourself because it's a negative attack, you have to deal with that person.
The mask thing is a different animal, but you're asking the people who are freaking out to walk away, which they weren't about to because they had righteous indignation on their side, which was handed to them by a government that's overreaching. So they weren't going to walk away.
Are we talking about masks?
The mask thing. But like say someone came up to me and said, I think we'll just stay in the gun realm because that's a passion for me. And they said, I think this, as it was said to me, I think Second Amendment is okay, but I'm not exactly comfortable with everyone having it. Maybe we need more registration.
What if they came up to you and said, I've seen you with my own eyes shoot a weapon.
Okay.
And it was an illegal weapon. And you're a pig because you were shooting an illegal weapon and you're a terrible shot. You know that's not true.
I would say, explain to me what was illegal about the weapon.
Right, but they can't.
But that's where I just
won't leave you alone.
I just go to explain it to me. Tell me what was illegal. Where was I? Where was the weapon?
Let's say they don't tell you first. They tell 50 people first.
Well, okay.
Need to know about you.
Honestly,
and they're like, wait, what? Jared?
Honestly, I don't care. Matter of fact, tell everyone I'm a bad shot. I'm fine with that. I don't care. That's a.
Well, tell everyone you own illegal guns or something like that. Something that affects your reputation.
Now that could get scary. Telling them I have illegal guns, because that could actually reflect and bring people over here. I don't own any illegal guns.
Of course not. We don't even own guns.
I'm not rich enough to own illegal guns. They're so expensive.
That damn boating accident. I mean,
so expensive.
How many are at the bottom of that one lake that we don't remember?
I did have a chance. I'll tell you this. This would have been in 99. My father-in-law at the time, the father of my second wife. She's now deceased, but I don't know what he was doing. And I was a young, dumb kid. And he approached me and says, "Hey, I got a chance to get a crate of AK-47s." And I went,
That's when you're like, bye.
I went, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I've got a chance. I've got a buddy who works in this port and he's got a crate he's got to offload." And I don't know if he was joking or what. And I was like, "Oh, okay,
Was
cool."
he wearing a wire?
I don't know. He didn't ask me if I want to buy him. He didn't ask me if I wanted, but I think, and because at the time I was working in, out of Dugway and whatever, I don't know if he really had a chance and floated it by me. Cause I know he owned an AR-15, and I owned an AR-15 and, sometimes, and he was an ex-Navy SEAL. He was a Vietnam era Navy SEAL, but he just mentioned that off the by and by. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like a fully automatic, like a real AK-47 in the U.S.
That's different than an
if you-
AR-15, right?
If you buy it legally, is a $17,000 gun.
With a big tax stamp on there too, right?
Yeah. Now, if you buy it illegally, I guess it depends on where you buy it and the need and how it got here. I mean, the price fluctuates. Like,
But what was his intent?
he was just mentioning it to me. He didn't even say how much he was paying for it. But like, if you were to buy an M16 over here, last time I checked, you're talking, you're upwards of $27,000.
No kidding. And what's the tax that you pay the government to own said weapon cost on something like that?
Oh, to get the tax stamp, it's only a $200 tax stamp.
Oh, well.
Tax stamp is tax stamp. Tax stamp was set so that in 1933, it was expensive. They just haven't changed the amount since.
Well, there's something.
But it's just a registration is more of what the tax stamp is. But yeah, the prices on those are insane.
That's interesting. So were you triggered by that? Did you have an experience where you were like,
Back then, they were barbecuing out back. All I thought about was the food on the barbecue.
okay, well then why'd you bring up
I was
this
just
story?
like, oh, but like, that's the only real time in my life where I've been approached like with an illegal gun purchase.
See, the reason I said that is because it's something that would affect your reputation, could affect your health, and it would actually, people that know you would be like, wait, what?
I would hope that law enforcement, where they broach with that, like they would at least try to investigate to find out. At least like send a guy in. A rumor.
Something which attacks your character. Either way, what I'm saying is when you get hit with something in the moment and you cannot avoid it, you face it. You face it.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, am I going to just freak out or am I going to face it and handle it? And that's where you have to stop and ask yourself, because we are so emotionally driven right now in this world. And the younger we get, it's like, again, with the body cams. I watch these young people who feel entitled and you cannot make me get out of my car. I can ask you to get out of your car as a police officer and you're supposed to comply. Or you can't do this or this. Well, you're actually in pending investigation. I can detain you. So many officers trying to detain a person during the investigation, and the officer says, this doesn't mean you're going to jail, but for my safety, I need to detain you. You can't put cuffs on me. That's what detaining you is. We live in a world right now where people don't care about law enforcement. Law enforcement's on camera now all the time. And in this world, we have to freak out. Thanks, David.
Well, I think there's I think it's also different departments have, like law enforcement around here, both our chiefs and our sheriff, they run tight departments. Their officers, every interaction is extremely professional, and the actual officers and the deputies have been, you can tell that they've been trained in, this is the Constitution and this is how you're going to function with your job around it. But there are a lot of places where the law enforcement officers will pull you over and hold you there so they can ask you in multiple times in multiple ways, can I search your car? When you've said no, okay, well, I was just wondering.
It's not what they're doing at random people.
Doesn't matter.
Finding a reason, or you've got a reason because of a traffic violation.
You answer no one time, and that's where the law enforcement officer, if he's got a reason, he figures out it. Does he need to get the canine there, or does he let you go?
Absolutely. And again, it's up to the officer. That's why you treat officers with
Oh,
respect.
I agree. You should every time.
I do not say, this is what I tell my family, keep your mouth shut. Answer their questions. Try not to offer anything. But so many of these folks not only get themselves in jail because they talk too much and they're terrible, but then they get convicted of crimes they basically confess to in the argument after they've been arrested. And it's Miranda. I mean, it's on video, guys. There's video in the back of police cars. There's video on the officer. And I like it. I like that officers.
I watched a show the other day about an officer that had 76 counts when he got caught of planting drugs.
Oh, I've seen those body cams too.
That's insane.
There's bad in every single job.
76 times he planted drugs just because he wanted to get on the narcotics division. David says the laws can be a bit much, however.
Well, and I think the federal government just recognized pot now and took it off the list.
They moved it to...
So
what did they move it to? Did they move it to 2 or 3?
I know it's not like a rest.
It's not a 1 anymore, but they moved it to 2 or 3.
I lived in Vegas when even if you had a bud, you were going to jail.
Yeah.
And now it's a different story. But I know laws have to change, but no matter what the law is, does not stop the fact that the law enforcement is supposed to enforce them. I mean, if you think laws are bad, it's not the police you need to be mad at. It's the people who created these dang laws.
Yeah, though I have seen times a lot of police officers approach people like that are video camera and stuff. Here in Utah, it happened. I want to say at what mall was it? But the officer came up and she was like demanding he shut his, and he's like, I'm in a public place. I can record right here all day, every day.
That's just an officer that's uninformed.
That's right. That's where you can tell sometimes there are departments that are run like a proper shit.
Oh, Grantsville PD, shout out.
Yeah, Holly's a fan.
I absolutely.
Holly's a fan. And Tooele Police Department.
Oh, the county sheriff's office.
And of course,
police department.
The county sheriff and our sheriff. I mean, you can tell these are departments that have a high priority in professionalism and being exact, so that when they do have to go to court, they just go in and say, all right, here I am. That's what I did.
Well, their policy is absolute.
And everything they put in. And some departments don't have that.
Well,
but we're lucky out here. Remember, anyone, if you want to come live in Tooele, what you do is you drive to Arizona and find somewhere to stay. And that's it.
Can't they just drive to Elko or something?
Elko works.
We're happy to have you buy gas in Tooele County and then head straight west.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
So
Dave says, like that girl who sold pot. Okay, he says, nonviolent offenses should not be ending in a shootout, 100%. Like that girl who sold pot, or the guy in his apartment sitting in his underwear growing pot. Like the feds hunting Trump supporters. Yes. That big one, remember that one that happened up in Ogden, what was that, about 8 years ago, that kind of got this no-knock warrant in Utah questioned when they entered the guy's house and he shot at cops and he ended up getting off.
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was like 8 years ago or so.
Okay.
And that one is, that did get us to say, you know what, do we need to have no-knock search warrants for pot? Isn't there any way we can say, all right, we want to check this guy's house out?
They were worried about him destroying evidence if they did it.
That's where you get a warrant and you're like, okay, here's how we're going to execute this warrant.
2 p.m.
When he's coming home from work, we're going to intercept him when he pulls into his driveway. And as he's walking in, we're going to make our approach then. Hey, we've got a warrant to look through your house.
Right, serve in the warrant.
And then he doesn't have he's not in the house with the opportunity to destroy stuff. Now, if he has some, Dr. Evil sharks with lasers on their heads that he can push a button and they destroy it, he's going to beat you
dogs
anyway.
with drones and
But
flamethrowers.
But if he doesn't, and
that makes sense, and I want to know what the argument against that is, because there's got to be one.
Right now,
No one would have these no-knock warrants. In local law enforcement without a reason that makes sense.
It seems like most local police departments are backing off of those.
Yes,
really are.
Because every
and our
time
sheriff
someone
even
dies, even if it's in a purposeful no-knock warrant, they pay money.
The big one that got him was that Louisville shootout in Kentucky where that woman got killed because they knocked on her house because she used to be a mule for her ex-boyfriend, but the new boyfriend was there, and he shot back at the police.
Yeah, the girlfriend. I thought the warrant was for him, and she got killed.
It wasn't for him. It was for her ex-boyfriend.
Okay, but it was for the man. It wasn't
he was
for
an
her,
innocent
and
party.
she got killed.
Well, okay, maybe not so innocent. I mean, he was, But anyways.
Don't say cops. Do not like knocks. Let's face it. The police officers that I know and have had personal experience with, they do not like to do no-knock warrants because they're in much danger as the person on the other side of that door.
Especially nowadays, it seems like the only people who have a thirst for this that I'm witnessing looking around are the feds.
Feds, and it's not people that agree with them.
And
these cases
seems to be
are crazy.
I mean, I'll come back to that. What's his name? P. Diddy, the P. Diddy one. Their execution of that raid was crazy.
It was about the media coverage.
And that's what I feel like because what was that guy, the Trump buddy? Dave, what's his name?
What buddy? He had a lot. What did he do?
The one that they raided his house, but they had CNN had been tipped off, so they were sitting there like set up before they raided his house. And so it seems like that they want the sexy part of that.
This is the part of government and the FBI that is so.
I'm wondering,
wrong when the media is involved. Even the Trump raid. Hello, let's be honest. Mar-a-Lago media was right outside, and the FBI was setting out what looks like highly confidential information, and they're putting the pages out. All that came out, but that was the political theater.
Well, and what it reminds me of is, have you ever looked into the Waco deal?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So the ATF. Oh, okay.
Let's wrap up at 5:30.
Okay, 5:30. So the marshals, the ATF, and the FBI
the DOJ
make a fool of themselves at Ruby Ridge. And the ATF has a pretty bad track record up to that point previously. So the ATF in, I want to say March, is due to go before Congressional Appropriations Committee.
Were they that close together? Ruby Ridge and Waco?
They were like a year and 3 months apart.
They just seem so long ago.
And they were due to go before appropriations and have half their budget cut. And I think, and there's a lot of evidence that the ATF planned and executed Waco as they did as a publicity stunt.
Well, you could have gotten him any time of the day.
Well, it's not just that he was
and not hurt the children or the people.
There 74 people, 32 of them were children. 2 of the women were pregnant. Not to, I mean, it might be a number or two off, but okay. The undercover was known to be an ATF agent. He even told them, "We know you're ATF. That's fine. Come to church with me. Come to this barbecue." Kept bringing him in. So, and that undercover begged him not to do it, not to execute this warrant, and he got shut out.
In the manner that they executed it, right?
Yes,
because it's not a big deal to ask for a warrant, but it's a different deal to go in guns blazing.
And if I remember, he even told them, the guy, because there was a different guy that did the gun sales, and he's like, he's out at a gun show in Louisiana or Arkansas at the time, wherever. So the guns aren't even going to be there.
But the guns were all purchased legally, correct?
All of them are legal.
Yeah. I thought so.
Everything was legal.
They have shows about it. I think there's one on Netflix.
The best
documentary.
the best thing to listen to, the best coverage of it is Last Podcast on the Left. They do the best coverage. But anyway, so he not only that, so he's friends
Stop
with the,
recommending other podcasts on our podcast.
maybe, someone will get some credit. Maybe he will, but also, so the compounds here, right over here is where the ATF set up their house. College guys pretend all have mustaches
Okay, go on.
but anyways, he jogged past their house every morning.
Right, that's what I mean. They could have gotten him
So
any time of the day.
they wanted to have this big, fancy show of force, and
A
it backfired
political
on them.
theater.
And also, the evidence they destroyed kind of leans you towards they shot first too.
I get that. So I don't know why we got down this rabbit hole.
Oh, because it seems like the feds. I was just saying, right now feels like then to me. Like when I read about then, it feels really like then, like the
Just
end.
on a smaller scale.
The end of same scale. The end of Bush 1. It feels like that when they're demonizing.
Same scale. What has the FBI done or the ATF at the scale of Waco? They're doing it to individuals.
How about
like one person.
arresting all of the January 6ers? How about the demonization,
Yeah, but-
saying the greatest threat to
No,
America right
this-
now? Hold on.
It's
Let
different.
me. No.
Yeah.
The greatest threat to America right now is white supremacy, which is complete horse crap.
Right.
And that's the exact same rhetoric that came out at the end of the Bush term.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, going after the January 6ers, they weren't all in one location, cornered in a house, and they're going to go serve a warrant with live CNN watching it. It was one person at a time. Waco was so many people trapped in one location, and all those lives lost
Sure.
over a warrant that they could have grabbed him at any time, executed the warrant, and just had him detained while they executed the warrant on this property, and not had the outcome they did. I don't think Waco
that's
was
just
an enormous scale, and I think the ATF is trying to avoid
the
that
only
at all
difference
costs.
with that is circumstance. The only difference with that is circumstance, because they had the circumstance of that.
Jeff, you're absolutely right.
The only reason, and another thing they didn't do, they didn't let the county sheriff down there in Waco County know they were going in that day. He tried to stop him after he found out, or tried to calm
That's
it down.
the thing. That's what the common thing here is without good communication to the person who's actually accountable for laws in that county. That's why I'm like, perhaps we have anybody who is appointed on the FBI actually has to be elected and accountable. These bureaucrats are not elected.
God,
So those sheriffs who should have full knowledge of what's happening in their county regarding their citizens and federal.
Yeah, that would be fine. I just think electing the Department of DOJ,
But no, that's why
director, I
don't
think that
believe
would muddles
happen.
the waters. I think writing laws that makes it so that feds and citizens, your average citizen, don't have direct impact. That there's the go-between of
An
your
elected-
county officer
Right.
or your city officer. Maybe it's not your sheriff, maybe it's your chief. Because
Should be a
some
coalition
sheriffs,
of all together.
some sheriffs aren't elected. Some sheriffs are appointed by their county, and back east, sheriffs usually aren't elected.
Biden was elected. Now, this is my whole thing. This is why the DOJ, we elect Attorney General. He's not appointed. He's the top cop. Biden was elected, right? But he gets to appoint his DOJ. Why should our laws change or our enforcement of them change based on who's in the seat? This is what bothers me.
That's why our
how
laws
we
need to-
get an unfair justice system.
Our laws need to be written better.
Well, it's not even that. They're the execution of the enforcement. Biden's DOJ is going to go after the right and make white supremacy the big topic. And parents are the domestic terrorists now for showing up. And under Trump's DOJ, It's, hey, we're going to fix the border and we're going to prosecute criminals to the fullest extent of the law. And why should that change? The justice system should be the justice system. So the FBI has an appointed leader. Now, FBI agents are not bad people. Local FBI agents, I need to make that absolutely clear. I blame leadership in the FBI and these appointed bureaucrats who have tainted it so badly and who have political means to try to affect their points of view on or try to change policy. It's the leaders of the ATF that are like, you know what, let's not let you have straps for your pistol.
I think if the laws were written better, that would not be an issue.
Less laws.
I agree. And the laws we have need to be clear. No nuance.
You talked about creating different laws today, like we need a law for this, this, and this.
Creating different laws or just lining them out, like the ATF with the, let's say, the forearm on
strap,
the forearm strap or whatever. That's just an interpretation of a law that exists because that law is not clear on what happens.
Yeah, but it's not an agency's job to interpret the laws.
Why not Congress writing laws? Hear me out. Little crazy notion. Furthering the great historical momentum that we have of writing laws to restrict government.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Simple, cut and dry.
That is the basis of the founding of our country, actually.
That's what your Bill of Rights are.
That's a great way to end. You guys, the Bill of Rights was, like you said, they're negative rights because you can't cover all these different laws. But the founders anticipated a government would grow too big and tyrannical, and we have to be able to protect these basic rights. And so here we are in 2024 with a country that is still young, and we're already perverted it. And it's like, wait a second, ATF, FBI, how are these even legal? Like you said, we're in the Constitution.
You get 250 years in a country. That's what you get. Then you become an empire.
And Jeff is right. ATF, FBI make rules. If Congress didn't vote on it, it's not law. In fact, it's the obligation of the victim of those rules to sue them or fight them in court at their own expense and hopefully get taken on by the Supreme Court to then interpret the law.
No, it's
insane.
Yeah, they don't make laws. They interpret the law. And they interpret it how they want. And it's simple. I'm a 10th Amendment guy.
There's a difference between law and policy. And that's the problem.
Except when the difference both ends up with the same fines and the same jail time.
Right. And it's, again, you have to civilly sue, if you even can, at your own expense, and you have to go. And if you get it to the Supreme Court, that's 10 years usually.
And here's another crazy thing.
And all your money
is
to get
you have X amount.
justice.
You have X amount to spend in your defense. The government has unlimited.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that's another law that should be written, is that the government is restricted to as much as the defendant can spend.
I would really love to thank Congressman Jordan, Congresswoman Malloy, for their time. I know it was a short time that they were here.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna reach out to her. We'll have her back on. Look, I
Jeff
know.
Adams says the word interpretation is how to work around the Constitution, and you're absolutely
That's right.
And it's used on both sides, guys. It's however you want to interpret it. It's just when it's gone against you, all of your justice has to come from the citizen trying to fight an entity to get their justice. And again, he's right. The law should be clear and succinct. And if you are in law enforcement, like an ATF or an FBI or whatever, you would have to adhere to those succinct laws. There should be no room for interpretation, especially from a bureaucrat. That should come from the lawmakers, the Congress and Senate, and then judges after the fact.
And your local area affects it. There was a guy from Arizona that was talking about his interactions with a Illinois ATF agent, and the Illinois referred him to the Arizona guy, and the Arizona's like, why are we worried about this? Just go home. And then the Illinois pushed it and then got it to where he was in trouble with a different agent.
No, this is theater, and it's
It is.
power. It's power grab at every second. And we are so grateful for those of you that stayed with us.
We're grateful for you
and you
guys.
tuned in on a 3:15 podcast on a Wednesday.
Yep.
And your support means everything to us. And your the ballots have been mailed out, and please vote. If you're a Republican, your ballot should be in the mail or it's coming. And I talked to the county clerk last evening, and she said we've got 3 in-person voting stations this year, and she'll be sharing that information shortly with everyone. And I know one's in Stansbury. But look, we had people ask for them. A lot of people asked to be able to vote on voting day in person at the polls. She has created this option. You better show up, because there'll be poll watchers there. It takes some time and effort to make this happen when we've been in mail-in ballot county for well before COVID. And if you really want to vote in person, just do it. And if you have your ballot, bring it with you when you go to the polls, because you can't vote twice. That'd be illegal. So vote in person. If you really truly asked for this, show up and support it. And
Yeah, that's a
that'll
good point.
just show our county clerk that this is what you want. And she'll know how many more polls to open if it's needed. But I know that our previous county clerk had people wanting to vote in person, and so she created that option, and no one showed up.
Use it or lose it.
Amen.
Yeah. So anyway, Friday show, Holly won't be here. David, shoot me a message.
I will be at Patriot Camp.
If you're off Friday, David, yeah, I'd love to have you come on and chat. But yeah,
Same
everyone
time, folks.
have a-
2 to 6 p.m. Friday.
yeah,
Political head trauma. We promise that you'll feel that, you just sat through a podcast and now you have head trauma.
yeah. Maybe one day someone will talk about us like, hey, they got good.
David, you missed the show where I begged him to vote and to get
You-
ready to vote. He
you
can't
did
vote
not-
in the primary.
You did not
but
beg
I
me
did
to
for
vote.
the general.
You did not beg me. You said you're going to.
Yeah,
I'm
you
going
are
to
going
drag you
to.
there. You didn't beg me. There was no begging
Actually,
about
yeah,
it.
I actually bullied him.
Yeah, the
I'm
straight